Welcome to the Outer Darkness Happy Hour podcast. We're John and Ashley.
This is not your typical Exmo Nevermo podcast.
We're here to share our stories, but we want to hear yours.
So grab a drink, a pull up a chair, and let's talk about life in the outer darkness.
Hi, welcome to the Outer Darkness Happy Hour podcast. I'm Ashley.
And I'm John.
I'm a Nevermo, which means I've never been Mormon.
And I'm an Exmo, which means I was Mormon.
And this is our little bar, the Outer Darkness, which is, of course, the Mormon term for hell.
I brought up Outer Darkness to Ashley once years ago, and she thought that'd be a great idea for either a bar or a podcast. So here we are.
Here we are with both. Anyway, today we are going to talk about caribou skulls, a bridal shower, and it's called a sauna, eh? The drink of the week is the caribou skull. I posted the little recipe video so you guys can sip on this with us. It's pretty good, nice and refreshing. Think you'll like it?
I think I like it too.
So I guess it's kind of my turn to talk about life right after getting to Alaska. Kind of like in the last episode, we talked about John's life when he got right back from his mission. Unfortunately, I don't have as much documentation, videos, and photos. A lot of that got left up in Alaska and is currently on a 25-year-old computer that we need to figure out how to get the images off of. But I'll do my best, and we like to throw in fun little AI images when we don't have an actual picture to show.
Yeah.
So anyway, so my first week, I mentioned in my episode when I talked about my trip to Alaska how I met my mother-in-law for the first time, and it was like running like a Hail Mary to the bathroom. So that was a little bit embarrassing. But once that slowed down, I got to meet her more, and we were living with them too, so it was kind of a crash course in this whole new family that I had.
Plus, you drove there to Alaska.
Yeah, I was exhausted.
From Texas.
I was exhausted. I ended up with a really bad bladder infection because it was long stretches of road, holding it for a long time, being pregnant, newly pregnant, and suffering severe morning sickness. That was kind of it was not an easy or fun trip, but it was memorable for sure. But once I got to Alaska, it was like a flood of people. Like all of a sudden, I'm meeting everybody that my new husband, everybody that he's ever known. He moved to Alaska when he was 8 years old with his family. And so he's still friends with everybody he went to high school with. And they're all either there or off in college or, married like him and starting to start a family like him. So I had all these built-in friends instantly, so I had to kind of hit the ground running. And for me, being really more of a social introvert, once I get warmed up and I'm talking, I have a good time, but my natural inclination is to be a wallflower. So it was a lot for me all of a sudden to have all these people asking me questions, judging me. I felt like I was on all the time. Like you say, you're on when you're on the road. When you're working your job, you're on. You're putting on this performance. And that was pretty much the first, 6 months I was there. I was kind of on all the time. I didn't really know how to relax. But I have a funny story when I talk about hitting the ground running. And I've told you about this before. Do you remember the story I told you about walking down to the shop that my father-in-law owned and my husband was working at? And he was in the back of a truck, and it was filled with, I guess you just say bits and pieces of caribou. He had gone on a 3-week caribou hunt and came back with 14 caribou, but they were quartered. So when I say pieces, it wasn't like a whole caribou just sitting there. It was how you have to transport wild game when you're flying them out on a tiny little bush plane. So it was just bits and pieces like Legos everywhere. And I was so sick. Morning sickness was hitting me hardcore. And I walk up and he goes, hey, Ashley, check this out. And he held up this caribou head, and there's no skin on it, right? It's already, and its eyes are kind of bugging out, and its tongue's hanging out. And I didn't say anything. I just looked at it, and I turned and I threw up everywhere. But
so, at what point did did you realize, oh, that was a mistake?
Um,
Was it the dead caribou?
the dead caribou. I don't know that I thought like this, that made me think that this was a mistake, but I definitely realized instantly I was out of my element. I I didn't grow up, in Southern California or, in a big city. I did grow up in the Central Valley of California, and that's a lot of farms and ranches. I grew up riding horses. I've been on horseback since I was 4 years old, showed competitively in Western shows. Like, I thought I was an outdoor girl. And then, boom, caribou head, vomit everywhere. But that wasn't the end of it. I had to just kind of wipe my mouth, drink a ginger ale, eat some saltine crackers, and it was onward and upward because now we had over a dozen caribou, like, worth of meat to process. So they set up almost an assembly line in their huge 2-bay shop. It was gigantic. And there was like 3 or 4 tables, and the meat was just laid out, on sanitary, like, tarps and stuff. And it was like one was for the guys were like cutting and portioning out the roasts. And then they had a hamburger machine. So you're like sticking the caribou into this and you're like grinding it and to make hamburger. We were cutting up stew meat or preparing meat that would be canned, roast to be vacuum packed. It was really efficient. I mean, they knew what they were doing, and I had to just learn. And by the end of that night, I knew how to process meat. I learned how to operate a vacuum packer for the first time. I learned how to operate a canner, which is scary if you've ever canned in one of those big metal end of the world apocalypse canners, freaking, hey, made in America, heavy duty. There is always the risk that if the pressure gets too high, it'll explode. And that's the end of your house, the canner. So I had to learn how to operate that. And that's like an intense 90 minutes of sitting there staring at that pressure gauge to make sure it doesn't, because I had an older one. It didn't have a little release valve. So I had to watch it and adjust the gas. And it was a gas stove. So I'm like really adjusting it the whole time. So yeah, I learned more about subsistence, hunting, processing, and all that in 48 hours than I probably ever would have learned in my entire life had I not ended up in Alaska.
That's why we've always agreed that if there's ever a zombie apocalypse,
yeah,
you're the hunter-gatherer.
Yeah, and I've got to brush up on my skills. We've got a great friend. I won't mention his name, but we go out shooting and stuff sometimes together, and I really need to work on my skills because they're there theoretically. I know how to do it, but it's been a while.
Our responsibility is we decided that you're the hunter-gatherer and I'm the person that's over like cultural awareness.
Cultural awareness, yeah.
Back at the camp.
Teach piano and music and poetry and be a dandy.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I'll go out and hunt and gather and kill the zombies apparently too with the machete. Yeah. So that was how it started for me, and I was super eager to learn all that. I really wanted to impress them. I don't know if I did. I was really eager to become like a productive part of this new lifestyle that I was just being thrown into. And I did like it. There's a lot about it I did like. I liked processing meat and reaping the rewards all year long. I mean, you're making a dinner from scratch that you helped. I mean, I did everything but kill the animals. So that was really cool. Yeah, I liked that. I don't know. Like, I know I wasn't what they bargained for when I went up there. They probably expected their son to marry somebody that was already into hunting and doing all that kind of stuff. But I was eager to please. I'm a people pleaser by nature. Less so now. I don't know if that's an age thing or an experience thing. I'm not as much of a people pleaser now, but I do like taking care of my family, and I don't think that's changed. My circumstances have changed, but I'm still at my core. I like to do things well, take care of the people I love, but butchering 14 caribou my first month there was definitely not on my bingo card. I don't know. You had to have some like culture shock things every once in a while, right? In your young married life? Oh, in my... Oh, okay.
You telling
me
with
me? Oh, sure,
all the stuff
yeah.
that you've been through?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of it's like a blur, so please ask me questions, bring some
I
stuff
remember
up.
when you'd come to Utah, and I was fascinated, like most people are, that you came from. I know you didn't really come from Alaska, but you spent 16 years there. So when I tell people, yeah, my wife's from Alaska, I mean, they ask me a ton of questions, and kind of the same questions that I've asked you. It's got to be gorgeous in the summertime.
Yeah.
And the way you describe, to me, the way you described summertime in Alaska, it sounded like something like a real life Jumanji situation.
Okay.
The oversized mosquitoes, the no-see-ums, the bears,
Yes.
the moose,
Yeah.
the perverts in vans.
Perverts
I mean,
in
they're
vans.
just
Yeah, we
so many
talked
things
about
out
that in the
that get
last
you.
in my little North to Alaska episode. But the mosquitoes up there, that was another new thing for me. I mean, I grew up with bugs, like mosquito bites, like normal stuff. But okay, people here in Utah, you guys think big mosquitoes, and granted, I've in certain areas up kind of up north, northern Utah, they can get pretty big. In Alaska, you can fit like your hair fly, like the mosquito flies by and you get like the breeze off of its wings. And if if you want to open your window at night to let in air, because our house, like most homes up there in Alaska, are not air conditioned. They've never really needed it. But it did get warm in the summer. Like the house would kind of heat up during the day. So at night you open your window and our screens, I'm guessing those screens were probably put in by his parents when it was their home originally, and we ended up eventually buying the house from them. So we had like tape over the little holes in the screen because you did not want the mosquitoes to get in at night. And there were nights, I think one of my first nights, I had the window open and I like couldn't. I woke up and I heard this humming noise, like a power line. You know how power lines can kind of hum like, and I'm thinking, where's that coming from? Because we don't exactly have power lines floating around our house. And I look at the window and the screen, and there were probably thousands, okay, but at least hundreds of mosquitoes looking at me through the screen, just hovering, watching, looking at me, and
Patience.
probably my husband like,
Patience.
look at those blood bags, we can't wait to get in there. And one of them got in, and I like chased it down, and I hit that thing on the wall. Like I had my flip flop, and I grabbed it, and I smacked that mosquito, and it was like a scene out of Dexter. The blood like shot across the wall, and I don't know if the paint was older, but it absorbed. I mean, that never came out. I had to paint the room eventually. It was that much blood, and it stained that quickly. Some poor moose was drained lifeless out in the woods somewhere after that horde of mosquitoes took it down. Yeah, so I was pestered more by mosquitoes and no-see-ums than bears or moose, really, to be honest. I mean, I only came across a bear maybe 4 times. Moose, kind of weekly, they'd walk through our yard, but I only felt threatened by mosquitoes.
Well, one time you had to drive your kids to school because there was a family of...
It was a mom. It was a cow. They called the female moose a cow, and then her calves were with her.
They were
she had
at
twins.
The bus stop, right? They were hanging around the bus
it's
stop
not.
area.
So technically not a bus stop. Okay, so it's so
Not a
rural.
real bus stop,
It's where the bus stopped.
The place where the bus stopped.
Yeah, it's where the bus stopped. It wasn't like a legit, but it was right outside. We had our home, and I'll see if I can find some pictures of this. But our home, and there was like a little walk path, and then a gravel entrance to our driveway, and then also led down to where my husband worked. Like their shop was right by the house. So there was a spot right there where the bus could stop and my kids could just walk outside and go get on the bus. And I would walk with them, especially when they were little. And we're getting ready to go outside, and right there, like right between my front door and where they need to go for the bus, there's this mama moose and her 2 babies. She had twins, which is pretty common there too. Pinning her ears back. I mean, she was not going to move, and I'm out there banging pots, and she's just looking at me like, whatever, you can't shoot me. That's illegal. I don't have to move. You're not scaring me with your pot banging. I may have tossed a softball out the door to kind of like make them see if they'd run away. They just didn't care. So I called the school, and I was like, look, I'm sorry. Kids are going to be late this morning. I've got a mama moose guarding the bus stop, and I can't get to my car with the kids. So I just had to wait until she decided to go, or my husband maybe rode over on a 4-wheeler, and kind of like that sound kind of like, because you're not supposed to you're not supposed to chase moose. You're not supposed to do anything to interfere with them existing, right? They're wildlife. They have the right to be there. But we had to kind of usher them along so I could get the kids to school.
Yeah.
But that was that was like the whole dog ate my homework excuse. Like you could really say, yeah, there's a moose blocking our driveway and I can't get my kids to the car. So they're going to be late.
And there was a time where the moose went through your backyard and your dog attacked it, right?
Yeah, I wasn't living there. That was when I had already moved.
Yeah.
That was, so my then now ex-husband, he still has him, a really nice pit bull dog, really sweet dog, good natured, lazy, fat, like a sausage with legs, not really like athlete of the year or anything. But Colin, or my youngest, was getting ready to go to school and he needed to go out to the bus, and there was a young bull moose in the yard, and it started chasing towards them, and the dog jumped the fence because there was a snowbank, so he was able to take his stubby little legs and climb up the bank and hop over the fence. And that bull moose was trying to attack my son, and then took set of sights on the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And a bull moose, especially that first year when their mom kicks him out and she's like, "You got siblings coming along, you can't hang out with me anymore." They're like any like dejected teen. They're like, whatever. And they're in a really bad mood, right? So he took his bad mood and brought it to our yard. And the dog had to chase him down and grab onto the moose. And it was not a pretty thing. The moose ended up being put down by the troopers. If something like that happens and your animal is defending you, not defending your property, but defending you, they don't question it. You don't get to keep the meat or anything, but the troopers actually have to put the animal down. So you can't do that. You can get in trouble. And there's like a $10,000 fine for trying to take meat. But that was, it was pretty bad. I won't go into gross of detail, but that poor moose, but lucky dog and lucky kid, he did get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was intense. I wasn't there for that one though. So, I try not to get too much into drama and things like that about living, my first year there. And then really for the next 15 years after that, it was odd. And this is probably me. This is maybe more my anxiety. I'm willing to admit it, that I never truly relaxed up there. So I was kind of always on guard and tense. And that probably came across as being uptight, but they weren't. Some people just aren't the easiest people to please. So living there, I was always kind of on eggshells, and I couldn't talk about my political beliefs. I was raised pretty liberal, but nothing like how politics is now. Nobody really knew back in the day, right? You didn't really talk about it, but they shared theirs all the time. I think because they probably assumed I had the same political beliefs.
But you never shared any of your own.
Oh God, no, not when because for one, I'm really a non-confrontational person. I'm like, if I bring something up like this, it's just going to pick a fight, So I was really quiet, but my mother-in-law, she did try to make me feel welcomed. And one of the ways she did this, and this is what's hilarious, because I try not to, we create outlines for our episodes, but sometimes, especially when it's my story, I try not to overthink it, because things I have forgotten pop into my head. Like right now, I'm remembering that she threw me a bridal shower when I got there. And, and I think she wanted to make up for the fact that we got married in California and they didn't get to see it. So she wanted to do something to be a part of the celebration. And she created this big event, invited all these people. Like, it was a lot for me. It was maybe like 20, 25 people, and some were around my ex-husband's age that he graduated with, girls that he graduated with who are now married, and so a lot of them were ladies from her church, so older women, and what felt old to me back then, which is my age now, so that's depressing. But I thought they were like a bunch of old ladies and a bunch of people my husband's age. And it was a surprise bridal shower. So the whole week leading up to it, I'm getting like all these lists of activities and chores I need to do during the day and get stuff done. I'm like, wow, she's really wanting this house like clean. And she already was really good at like cleaning and decorating order. So I didn't have to do a lot, but it was like a lot of work still. And one Saturday, it was like Saturday morning, and she goes, well, we're going to make this sandwich spread and we're going to make this, make that. I spent like 4 hours making all this food, having no idea that it was for my own bridal shower. So I prepared all the food,
Not knowing it was
like
for a
I did
bridal
all
shower.
that for my own surprise bridal shower. So by the time the bridal shower happened, I'm probably at that point 4 months pregnant. Didn't look pregnant at all. If anything, I looked really thin because I was, so sick. So I've been working all day getting this stuff ready, and then all these people start showing up, and I'm just
Like,
tired.
what's this for?
And the worst part was like I was wearing, granted, it's one of my cherished pieces now. It's my mom's old 49er hoodie from when they won a Super Bowl in the 80s. But it has like a cut neck, and I'm wearing jeans, and my hair is pulled back in a ponytail. I had no idea I was going to be the bride at my own, bridal shower. I would have liked to have known, so I could have showered and gotten ready, but I was all haggard from a whole day of cleaning and preparing food. And I know in her head it was just this fun, cute thing. And because I lived there and I didn't have a driver's license, it's not like I could leave for the day and she'd be able to surprise me. So she probably just figured, I'll just make her a part of it. And then people will show up and they're like, surprise, happy bridal shower. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. They made me a little tiara thing. And one of my husband's good girlfriends from high school is super crafty and made this beautiful little flower arrangement for me. So like I said, it was fun. Afterwards I was thinking, I just spent all day preparing for my own surprise party. That was odd, but it was fun. So that kind of sums up my first month and a half in Alaska, getting to meet people at the church. They were Lutheran, so we started going right away. And I know we mentioned that in the last episode. I think we showed some pictures too, huh?
Mm-hmm.
My pregnant belly when I was at the end of my confirmation, right before I had my oldest. The church, it was nice because we lived so far outside of town. I mean, it felt really far. It took like 25 minutes to get to the nearest town. Where we lived was technically a village. It was not considered its own town. It didn't have its own police department. It did have a fire department though, but it's pretty small. So driving all the way in, it was my only chance to socialize outside of my new family. So outside of my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and my, husband. So it was a chance to make friends. There was a lady there that was pregnant almost exactly. I think our kids ended up being born like a week apart. So that was fun, but it was also stressful because all of a sudden I'm part of this like legit religion. Like they take communion.
So they just brought you in without asking you anything. Did they ask if you were Lutheran or what religion you grew up in?
Again, playing back into the fact that I was more of a people pleaser at the time, I'm sure they asked, do you want to go to church? They probably told me about it. I didn't grow up with a religion, so I was neither for nor against religion. I had zero bad experiences with religion. It's not like when like you left the Mormon church and then all of a sudden you're being thrust into a new religion. Yeah. So for me, I was young. I just turned 19. I turned 19 like 3 days before I drove into Alaska, or 4 days. I thought religion would be like the gateway to making a family, having a community, having a support system, because I have a great family. I have cousins that I couldn't tell you if they're my first cousin or like my fifth cousin, because we all hung out all the time. I had an amazing childhood. We played in the dirt. We were little country kids, ran all over the place. I have so many photos and just so many fond memories. And I wanted my kids to have that. And I'm like, okay, well, my husband has a younger brother, but he had no plans of getting married or procreating anytime soon. And then my brothers, they hit the ground running with procreation, but they were in California and I was in Alaska. So if my kids were going to have like the built-in friendships like you get with your cousins, like that built-in friendship and confidence you get with cousins growing up, it was going to have to be with kids they grew up with in the church. Yeah. So that was my idea, I think, like at 19, that, if I'm part of the church, and it's like I'm more part of the family and I don't feel so alone. And it took, a few months for me to realize pretty quick. I was like, wow, my family saved me a lot of trauma by not being religious, because you're made to feel
Lucky
bad.
you.
You're made to feel bad about everything. And I was, like I said, I was little Miss Scarlet Letter with my pregnant belly that didn't match how long I'd been married. I was 3 months pregnant when they met me, 4 months, so 5, 6 months when I start showing, but I've only been married for like 3 months.
Yeah.
It's, people started paying attention to, oh, so do you guys have an oopsie or an uh-oh? And I'm like, I'm not two. Yeah, I got pregnant. We got busy and had, like you do when you're 18, right? And I had a baby, but I didn't think it was a sin and I didn't feel guilty or dirty. I definitely started to feel that way with like their eyes judging me. But I was still striving to make that community and make those friendships. And I worked really hard to fit in. I mean, talking about like dressing, being modest and all that wasn't even in my vocabulary. And I'm not saying I was a hoe bag when I grew up in California. We wore tank tops and short shorts, walked around in cut off jeans and our bikini tops. And that was just normal. Nobody acted like that was like a bad thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you need to be modest. And, you're a mom now. And I'm like, I'm 19.
You're a mom now.
I'm 19 and
You can lose all hope.
yeah. So I still want to, I don't want to wear the big long prairie skirt and the button up. What are those, the fundamentalists? I didn't want to dress like that.
Yeah.
So I did clash a little bit with people here and there for appearing like I was wearing more form-fitting clothes, but they were just normal clothes.
I loved it when you moved to Utah, when you would go to like PTA meetings or school events with your son, and how you were surprised how all the other moms looked identical, like they all came from the same.
And not to say
they were all part of the same band.
Yeah, not to say they weren't beautiful, but they all had the same long barrel. You're talking here, right?
Yeah.
The long barrel roll, which looks great. I mean, at the beach waves, I have more power to you with extensions and stuff like that. I mean, I get my eyelashes done. These aren't natural. And my hair's not naturally pink either, in case you're wondering. But it was odd. I was like, there was definitely a style, like a cookie cutter vision of what is attractive and beautiful. And I noticed that right away in Utah. And I figured out pretty quick that I didn't want to fit that. I mean, I had long hair my entire life. It took him suggesting once that, wow, you look great with a pixie cut. So here we go. Haven't given it up since, because I love it and I don't have the patience to grow it out, because there's that ugly stage where it doesn't look good at all.
And I remember one time we were driving through Utah County and we drove past one of the MLMs, the multi-level marketing companies that you signed up for in Alaska.
I was like, I don't know. Can I say
Utah is the birthplace in Mecca
like
for all things MLMs?
Yeah,
she had no idea.
There was 2 MLMs that I got involved in up in Alaska. One was makeup based that one of my girlfriends got me into. And the other one was fitness based that my other girlfriend got me into. And I grabbed onto that because I was a personal trainer and fitness instructor for a long time up in Alaska. That was my career I had up there. I had no idea. I will tell you, it's pretty funny that about 3 or 4 years ago, I get a text from my ex-husband. He's like, hey, you want to give me a call real quick? And I was like, okay. So I called him. He goes, yeah, you got a check in the mail from, bleep. I'm not going to say their name. I don't want to get in trouble. Apparently, there was a huge lawsuit against this MLM, and then anybody who'd ever paid to join it got like a $800-something check, depending on how long you'd been a part of it. So yeah, he called me. He's like, "What do you want me to do with this?" And we figured it out, and I got the money. So that was a nice little surprise. I was part of a scam. Yeah, I'd been scammed. Didn't even know it. Sorry to everybody I sold that to, by the way.
No, we got sucked into an MLM as well. Everyone does at some point. If you live in Utah, at some point you go through that whole phase of getting in the ground. Yeah, get on the ground floor. The ground floor opportunity. Yeah. But yeah, that's my first little while in Alaska. Yeah. I mean, interesting stories for me. Hopefully interesting to listen to. Like I said, anytime we go out to dinner with people, they're always asking you questions about Alaska.
Yeah, and there's a lot I forget until somebody asks me the right kind of question. I was like, oh my gosh. I do have a crazy story. You kind of blank out trauma sometimes or things, you know, over the years. I I don't hold on to that stuff, but I've got some interesting stories. And I know everybody does. That's definitely why we decided to do this podcast, is because we want to hear other people's stories. And we've said in the past, like, oh, we're not, we don't want to be a trauma dump, but that's not to minimize what like you guys go through or anybody else goes through, because we definitely want to hear those stories.
Yeah, we don't want to base
it was
every
more
episode off of that.
yeah off our trauma, I guess. I think that's what we didn't want to do. Obviously, if you have a story that's worth telling, there's going to be some heartache and stress
Absolutely
along the way. And if you're willing to share it with us and you're okay with it, and it doesn't cause you any grief to do so, we definitely want to hear it. Yeah. But we're dying to get out and do some lives. We have an interview coming up. Won't drop any names. Can't wait to share that with you guys. But we are going to be out on location in April, the first Friday in April, for our first Fast Friday. We will release on all of our socials when and where. If anybody wants to meet up and share a quick story, have a quick drink, if you can think of somewhere that you might want to recommend, or if you own an establishment and you want us to visit, we are absolutely down to do that.
Yes.
I think that would be amazing. Get to know the local shop owners, And
we're already getting a lot of DMs.
Yeah.
They're stacking up right now.
Yeah.
Wanting people
wanting to share their stories.
And
that's what we were hoping for.
Yeah.
We're doing these episodes to share about ourselves, but we're going to take a turn, and our show is going to be a lot more about Salt Lake and Utah, and being Mormon, being ex-Mormon, or being a nightlife person, going out, having fun, having drinks. It's kind of like what mirrors our life and so many people around here. So
awesome.
Thanks for joining us for episode 5, and letting me share my story.
Yes. Cheers to the outer darkness.
Cheers and happy Friday.